In today's episode, I have visiting artisan Annie Lehwald. Let's see how innovation meets artistry as we forge something extraordinary together.
You are listening to the Innovation Forge, the #1 podcast on adaptive enrollment management, exploring the data, marketing, and strategy that fuels higher education. Here's your host, David Dysart.
Hello, Guilders, and welcome to another episode of The Innovation Forge. I am your host, David Dysart, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on this journey into the innovative world of higher education and adaptive enrollment management. Have you ever looked at a really complex system, like a dynamic decision ladder or a logic-heavy portal, and just thought, how does anyone even begin to design this without breaking their brain? Well, today's guest not only figures it out, she makes it beautiful. I'm talking about Annie Lehwald, Associate Director of Data Operations at Stevenson School, who's redefining what it means to design with logic. Annie walks us through how she approaches systems thinking and how hard things get easier. We get into decision letters, markup languages, portal design, and why sometimes the best design solution is one that just works. She does share her screen, so I recommend watching the video for this one. She does a great job talking through the process, so there's plenty to listen to as well. Whether you're into UX, EdTech, or just love hearing how smart people solve messy problems, this one's for you. Let's see how Liquid Markup takes shape today. Joining me today is Annie Lehwald. Annie worked for 15 years at her alma mater, Rockhurst University in Kansas City, where she started working 3 days after graduating from there, which is wonderful. She was an admission counselor for 3 years, then worked in the advancement for a year, then back to admissions for 10 years, and as a team member of 3, implemented Slate for admissions in 2016. She had another very small stint in advancement at Rockhurst before joining Stevenson School in 2023, which is a pre-K through 12th grade independent school. Annie is fully remote for Stevenson and works with an out-of-this-world team of Slate captains. Her primary responsibility is being the Slate captain for admissions. Annie has presented 3 times at Summit in person and once virtually. She married, in her words, not me commenting, way out of her league. And they have 4 kids that take up most of her free time, which I totally believe. Hi, Annie.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Wonderful to have you on both the quick strike, short interviews, but so excited for our longer chat today. Now, you did mention that you are terrified of heights, which I totally am as well, and that you actually make yourself jump off the high dive every time you go to the pool with your kids. Can you just tell me more about this habit and facing that fear every time?
Sure. I'm terrified of heights. I've always been terrified of heights. I think it probably started when we, in earnest, when we went to the Grand Canyon and my brother was like trying to shove me off, right? But
how that happened.
Oh, well, he was just 3 years older than me. And, my mom had a nervous breakdown and made us leave which now I understand, but there are no guardrails, older brothers. And so I thought, I'm not going to let this conquer me. So anytime there's something with heights, I just try my best to get up there and do it. And I feel like this is the end of the summer now that we're recording this. And I have jumped off every single time off the high dive, and I force myself to look down. And I am, just trying to be a good example for my kids. I'm also really terrified of public speaking, so I always submit a proposal for Summit. I always try to do public speaking when I get the chance. So I'm also scared of that.
That's wonderful that you're able to put yourself in such an uncomfortable position every time to be conquering those fears. When I was in school, I worked the climbing wall for kind of the same thing of just I'm afraid of heights, and we're just going to do this every single day. And yeah. I think it helps when you're regularly doing it. I think being a few years out, I imagine my fear of heights is the exact same as it was day one starting that job. So definitely, I think to your what you said is just doing that regularly really helps keep that fear at bay or keep the courage up. Let's set the scene. How did you first start working with Liquid Markup and Slate to begin with?
So I was at my alma mater, Rockhurst University, go Hawks. And I was, I had gotten, done Launchpad, and then immediately launched into implementing. And then by the time, and I don't remember if Liquid Markup was a thing at the beginning or not, I don't know if anybody else has that problem where it's was that a feature that I just didn't know about, or did it not exist? And then I watched I think it was a webinar or something on Liquid Markup. And I was working on our graduate application admit letters. And I think we had like 6 of them. And I thought, okay, there has got to be a way that I can just do one. It's all graduate business. Like I should be able to do merge fields. And we had like acceptance conditions on some things, and that we had to display some places and not in other places, or not in other letters. And I just started working on it, and I kind of had a crunch. I kind of had a deadline. And so I think I watched the webinar on it, and kept going back to the documentation to see what the like syntax was that you had to use, because I have no IT background, if I know everyone's shocked. And I just kept going back to it. And then I was able to take, I think it was 6 letters down to 1. And then from then I was like, I'm done. This is great. I am only going to make separate emails or letters or portals or whatever if I like really, really need to. And that got me really creative too, about being like, how can I? And kind of having an engineer's mindset of far as like, okay, what, the whole like exclusivity groups that we talk about when we're in Slate, like how do things progress down the line, and how can I use an else statement instead? It's really helpful to just sit there and think sometimes, and tinker. And so that got me started. And then from then on, that's all I've been trying to do.
It is so easy to get caught up in like, oh, okay, this is the template from last year. And whether you're a new staff member or you were the one that did it last year, it's just like, I'm just make a copy. I'm just going to do it. We have this process where it's 6 different decision letters, or this goes to 3. It's so hard to like take a step back, bring it back to first principles, and just be like, okay, let's take a moment. Let's see what is the best possible way for us to do it. And even if it is a little bit of lift up front, like it's just going to make your downstream processes on the back end, the student experience, so much better. But it is very hard trying to take the time, gather the courage to learn these new tools, and being able to implement them when you're in a time crunch in a timely fashion. I know when I did decision. Oh,
go ahead.
Like when I did decision last time, I'm like, oh yeah, this will be pretty quick. It was not quick.
Yeah.
It took so long
Yeah.
to do the content block and logic, and I'm just like, oh, this. I very much so poorly sold this to my boss, how long this was going to take. But it's just.
That when you have the conversation with your boss or whoever, and that's one thing that I'm really liking at Stevenson, it is that little bit of lift at the beginning, and it might take you longer, but the amount of time that I was going back and editing decision reasons, because we were using decision reason to show letters, and folks were putting the wrong letter on. So that was kind of the impetus of it. It was like, well, yeah, there's 6 letters. It's confusing for you. And we're giving the wrong letter to folks because it is confusing and it shouldn't be this hard. And that was one of the like, okay, light bulb moments. Like I got to take a couple days, and then this will be so much easier.
Yeah. And there is that theoretical issue. Like maybe you wrote the syntax wrong, or you referenced the wrong column. But like you said, so the old process, you could be giving the wrong letter out, or you didn't make an update across all 6 of the same email that just is slightly different. There's always chances for error. And this just makes it much more standardized, much more streamlined. So maybe there are some bumps in the road while you're getting it up and going, but in the long run, it's faster, it's simpler. There will be less chances for error as you're just reducing the manual inputs every time you do something. So I love all of that. And maybe let's take another step back. Yeah. For those just hearing about it, how would you describe what Liquid Markup is and why it matters in our work?
So I had to do the whole, the Webster Dictionary says. I looked at Slate AI. I was like, what technically is liquid markup? And I have it written down. A templating language used to dynamically generate content, personalized communications, and use conditional logic in places such as mailings, portals, events, communications, and more. And then the way that I would just describe it is using like coding and exports and merge fields to create personalized content. And it's just a way that you don't have to just type the same thing and have it hard coded, that you can have dynamic fields and bespoke communication based on, just doing a little bit of coding. I like to tell people now that I'm so smart at coding. That's literally all I know how to do. That's it. That's the only thing I can do. But it's nice to be able to have that, like we were talking about, if it's a conversation, like if you have told someone something, you expect them to remember it in one conversation. And that's the same thing with our institutions. And that liquid markup can really have that bespoke communication creation, which is it's so easy to, once you do it, you're like addicted to it.
Yeah, I've also that techno-functional background, so definitely not a
Yeah.
coder, but
Sure.
it's these little pieces of if you start understanding the basics of like SQL and stuff like that, that really opens up a whole new world of what you are capable of doing in Slate because it's also a techno-functional system, so it really empowers users who are not as technical on the side of the house to be able to do a lot with just a little bit of that next level understanding.
And to feel
And
cool about it too.
oh yeah, feels so
Yeah.
good. Oh yeah, I did all of this Python
Yeah,
code.
look how great it is.
But I do want to make sure that we do have time to get to your wonderful demos.
Sure, yeah.
So let's take a look at something you built. You mentioned
Okay.
using Liquid to simplify portal queries. Can you walk us through that setup?
Sure. So I'm going to share what's in my test database right now, and that's actually one thing that is one little tip. So I never really thought about using my time warp database until I came to Stevenson. So using that for like shorter things, and then using test for longer things. And so I put this in test because we are always refreshing our time warp environment because someone's always like putting something in production and refreshing time warp and checking it. And so that's just one little tip that I would give for doing things.
Love that. Thank you.
Can we see the Stevenson Campus Visit Management portal?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay,
Looking great already.
awesome. All right. So we have this campus visit management portal, and I'll try to be as thorough as possible without boring everyone. But basically, we have all of these different templates. We have on-campus interviews, we have virtual interviews, we have shadow days, we have group tours, we have consultant visits, and parent visits. And all of them have different templates because they have different needs for the forums and the communications. But our office manager really needs to see all of those and kind of make sure that everybody's staying on top of things and that we have tour guides and all of that. So we have this campus visit management portal. And then inside of it, we have this little hamburger menu here. And that will show today's visits, tomorrow's visits, upcoming visitors. And then we did have past visitors for past regular visitors and past virtual interviews. We don't use those as much anymore. So that's another like thing of as you're going through things, maybe like, we're not using it. Let's take it off and see if anybody notices. But we haven't yet. So I'll be focusing on these things when we talk about them. But this is so beautiful and so easy. You go to today and you can see who's here today if it loads. And we'll see that today we have a virtual interviewer. And these are all test cases from Parks and Rec. But you can see that we have today's virtual interview here. And then if I go to tomorrow on the hamburger menu, then I can see tomorrow we have Ann Perkins coming and she's coming on campus. So it's a really quick and easy way to do this, which is awesome, except for on the back end, it was a huge disaster and it was very difficult. And my caveat here is I made none of this. If there's anything cool that I ever show, it's because someone else made it and I stole it / borrowed it / either suitcase. This was actually Emily Toops, our director of data operations. She made this a long time ago. It may have been Alan Tang, who was the associate director of data representative before me. Could have been him too, one of the two of them. But Emily and I were talking about this one day, and I was like, all of these queries had to go with different views, and then they had different methods, and it was just a lot to update. And I'll make this bigger. It was just a lot to update every single time we needed something to update it. And Emily said, well, why don't you just assign subgroups based on a query? And something to that effect. I have no idea what that meant. Still kind of a little hazy on it, even though I'm going to demonstrate it today. She said, we can do one sustainable query, and then you can pull views from that query using liquid markup. And I was like, okay, well, show me what we're going to do. So now we have one query, and I'm going to start with the query and then go to the views and then kind of go back a little bit too. So we have one query that is a configurable joins form response based because I want to have one row per form response for all of these different templates. So if a student signs up to come on a campus visit on campus and also virtually, I want both of those to show up. So I do not want to start with like a person or application based. We need to start with a form response based there. And then the big kind of filters that I'm doing is I want to, in these templates, Stevenson is amazing, and we are actually all in one database for advancement, student success, admissions, everything, like from the time you're a prospect to the time you die as a donor, hopefully as an alum, as a grandparent, you were in our database. So we have to be really specific about templates. So I want all things, I joined to, or someone did joined to the form based on form response. So I want the templates that I'm looking for. I want it to be greater than today, and I want it to be either attended or registered. We don't care about canceled. maybe some folks might. So we have kind of the general stuff you'd want to know from each form response. They joined out to person. We want to know their name. We want to know if they're boarding or day. That's important for us. We want to know the date that they're coming to visit. We want to know their gender, those kinds of things. But where some of the magic happens is here inside these two exports right here. So we have exported a couple of different subqueries where we're wanting to know, okay, so they're coming today, or they're coming tomorrow, or they're coming in the future, and what kind of visit are they doing? Are they doing an in-person visit? Are they doing a virtual visit? So what we did is we used a case statement. So we have these two different, we're concatenating two different exports, and concatenating just means putting together, like literally putting together. And we're doing little sub exports here. So if we click on this, so I would just do an export here. And then I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give us what the current date is. And I'm also going to give us the date that the student is visiting. And we're going to basically say when today's date equals the date that the student is coming to visit, then say today. I'm going to stop for a second and kind of talk a little bit about case statements because they're also one of my favorite things. And I had no idea how to use those again. If we're sensing a theme here, David, this is the theme. I didn't know how to use them either. I was like a newborn baby when I came to Stephen. It was great. But the case statements basically said, like, when this happens, then make it this. It's like a translation code, but you don't have to set up a translation code. It's just a formula that says, take this piece of data, either compare it or see if something's inside of it, and then spit something else out. You have to be correct with your syntax. You have to have like single quotes around the kind of value that you want to happen. It's kind of like Excel when you do certain things. You have to have, if you want it to be kind of text, you have to put the right things around it. But it's real, once you figure it out, it's beautiful, and it's so nice. You don't have to do translation codes. So I'm telling this, I'm saying, okay, if the current date equals the date the student's coming, then export in that column today. Otherwise, say future, because I know that it's not in the past, because I have that query filter at the bottom that it's not going to be in the past. And so those two things are being added there. The other thing that I'm concatenating and putting together is the type of visit that the student is having today. And in this, I could have just exported the form template, and I could have just done that, but it got a little long because our form templates are long. So I used another case statement. Also, just really like them now, right? So once you learn one tool, you just use it over and over again. But I'm saying, okay, so when the template is in campus preview visits, then basically say the kind of visit the student is having as group. If it's in a UD campus visit, then say individual. If it's in a shadow days, then shadow, so on and so forth. So you can kind of see how I took those template names and made them shorter and made them more computer friendly. So it's easier to be able to use formulas and things on them. So in general, I'm basically saying for this column, I'm saying, I'm concatenating together, is the visit today or in the future, and then what type of visit it is. And then I have I'll go back to that for a second. So now when I look at my views, I can look at my future visitors view. And instead of having a view per thing, I want a view for, view for future on-campus visitors. I'm going to view for future virtual visitors. I have this one tab here that has the visitors, the future visitors, which is the upcoming one. And I can just pull into the view. I can pull everything from that one query. So I'll kind of talk through the query a little, the liquid markup in here. So I have a couple different content blocks. I have things that are inactive because I wasn't sure they were going to work, right? Or they were older, and so I inactivated them. So the ones that I have active that are dark. And Emily taught me this. So she basically said, inside the queries, you can then assign based on columns or other pieces of data. You can say, if this happens, then assign it this grouping. So we're grouping it together. And whoever's listening to this may be like, oh yeah, it's called a blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that is, but I'm using it. It should be very accessible podcast here. So we're saying, okay, I want to assign the future individual group to when inside that PB visits query that I have, and with that time type, what we just talked about, whether it's today, whether it's future or today or whatever, I want to assign a future individual. I'm going to assign the group of future individual where that column says future individual. So give me everything in the query, but then only show me the ones that say future individual right here. And then this little other piece here is only if that grouping that now I've now assigned anybody in future individual is greater than 0. So if there's anybody who's coming in future individual, show me this and loop through here. The 4 item in future individual that's liquid looping. So you're saying, okay, for anybody in this grouping, I want to know the date and the name and the visit exceptions and the staff. One thing that really threw me when I was first learning about liquid looping and dictionary experts and all that, I did not understand like how you got the item in future individual, and apparently it's just any word you want to put. So you just have to, be consistent for item, for result, for student. You just have to be consistent here and here to say, okay, if it's for item, then it needs to be item date. If it's for result, then it needs to be result.date. Another rookie mistake I generally make is I do like item underscore date instead of item dot date. And then I'm wondering, why is it not coming through? And that is why. But I'll just hopefully some things that people can take away and be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then otherwise, if there is nothing in that grouping, then we would say no campus visitors scheduled. So we're going to go back here for some of these. There must have been no one in upcoming virtual interviews because there is no virtual interviews scheduled. There is something in the upcoming tours and interviews for the regular campus visits. And so it is displaying and looping through these different fields here for anyone in that query that has meets that future individual. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's kind of understandable. And then what I was able to now then copy, like literally just copy and paste, which was really nice to say, okay, so this one was future individual. Now I want to grab anybody who's future virtual. And again, I use the same, the same syntax, use the same headers, everything is the same, and it's pulling all from that one query. And then you can say, future virtual. So that was super helpful. It made life a lot easier. It's only one query to update, especially we add a lot of templates, and then you got to go back in, and if you had to update them on all these queries, then it's just a lot of work. So this is really helpful. The one kind of out of the box thinking that I personally did on this was this other one that was called tomorrow type. So I went back to the query because I thought, okay, well, they want to know if they're upcoming, they want to know if they're future, but they also want to know specifically tomorrow. So they had, I thought through a bunch of different things and none of them were working, and I was trying really hard, and then all of a sudden I thought, I can just look at a different column, right? I can create another column, and I can just say, well, if it's in tomorrow, then I want it to show in the tomorrow group. So similar kind of thing. So I went into, I basically copied the same subquery export, and instead of saying if today's start date equals today, say if the form start date equals current date, say today, now I'm just saying, I used another formula basically of if the current date is, +1, so date add, day 1. So if it's tomorrow, then say tomorrow. And if it's not, then say not tomorrow. Because all I cared about in that column was either tomorrow or not tomorrow. One other little tidbit that I learned was if you type however old you are, if it's a hashtag, if it's a pound sign, I don't know, it depends on your age, what you think that is. Then you can find different formulas, which is also super helpful because, again, like if you don't know how to use a case statement, it kind of starts it for you and will give you that example, which is really helpful if you're new at using formulas inside of things. And I use the date add one because I just didn't remember. So in this one, I'm saying there's still the same type, whatever the type is, but is it a tomorrow visit or is it not a tomorrow visit? So then I could go back into my view now, and now I'm pulling, I'm going to go to the tomorrow visitors tab. And then I'm saying, if in that big query that I was just looking at for everybody else, if that column of tomorrow type is tomorrow individual, then assign that grouping as tomorrow individual and show it there. And then if it's not going to show that. So it just makes the whole, hopefully that was a good enough explanation that people can understand like how we are using that liquid markup, and how if I was smart and thoughtful, that I would probably go in, I could take almost all of these queries out and I could just be using this PV visit sustainable. And it could be just going to my couple of different views that come down from my hamburger, and my couple of different methods would connect with that. But really, this is also a plug to clean up your database. But usually captains don't have time. So now this is just a lot easier, more sustainable way to use a portal.
That is fantastic. I love how much thought you put into making this so functional, but also cleaning up the back end. And even if you haven't deleted all the stuff, I imagine you go into any Slate database or any system database, and there's just those kinds of like vestigial, like, yeah, this isn't really used anymore except for that one spot. And I don't have the like 25 minutes to clean up that one spot. So it just is there.
And also, if you're new, it made me really nervous. It still makes me really nervous to delete something in case, like, oh, maybe I wanted to go back in and look at that, even if it was not what I'm doing now. Yeah. Upvote notes on portals, though. Man, I would like notes on portals. So upvote that,
I
folks.
yeah, fully love any spot that you can put notes. That is always a win. So yes, I would also echo that. Go upvote that. I'll try to find the URL just so people can click on it and just go do it.
That's true.
That'd be great. Well, I loved seeing the way you do liquid markup and that conditional logic in portals. But let's talk about delivered. You also mentioned that. You've got some clever tricks to make emails feel human using just liquid and Slate data. Can you show us a couple examples of that?
Yeah, I actually just have one example because it combines a lot of different examples inside of it. So we have an email that goes to our lower and middle division families. And this email is nicely branded. And when you look inside of the email, we have a ton of liquid markup. So all these yellow parts are liquid markup. And that's because we are targeting folks with the information that they need to know. And we're really trying to drive folks based on actions that we know that they've taken and moving them forward in the process. So, right, you want to make your funnel as seamless as possible and you want to kind of move people along. So our lower and middle division, Stevenson is generally student-centric. And I know for those of you who might be listening that are higher ed, you'd be like, okay, what's the big deal here? But you can use this in lots of different ways. The ideas that I'm talking about here can be used for advancement and for student success. Especially if you're talking about relationships with folks, we have parents as person records, and then we have relationships. So parents and students are person records. And then we have relationships connecting those together, which is a super helpful process for us. It requires a little bit of duplicate cleanup, but it works really well for us because obviously lower and middle division, their grades PK through 8. Not all of them have email addresses, and not all of them are logging on to the computer. Decides to watch like Elmo or something. So we really target the parents for a lot of communication. So we kind of start on a person based for the parents and then join to the relationships that have their students in them. I am a parent of 4, so I would really not like to get 4 different emails about my students. It's great when my school can just be like, to the Lehwald family. That's really helpful. And so we're working with some of that kind of idea back here as well. So I'm going to kind of walk through what the intention of this email is. This email is to welcome folks to the Stevenson admission process. They've inquired, they've submitted, RFI, an inquiry form. And we want to move them along to the application completion process. We want them to application submission process because we have a Slate hosted application. So we're trying to move them along here. Also within this, we have our call to action is application, but also we really want them to sign up for events if we have available events. That's another kind of call to action in there, and we want them to log in, or that we don't want them to have to log in there. We want them to be able to go to our public facing web pages and sign up, but we want it to be connected to the student. So lots of different logic for this. So in general, we know lots about families when they inquire. Things that we know that before I would have said, okay, well, I know for the pre-K and K folks, they have a little bit different application process and they apply a little bit differently. And I'm highlighting this. They have a 2-part campus visit experience versus a 1-part campus visit experience. They have a little bit different requirements. In the past, I would have just created a welcome email for folks who had, 1 through 8 and a welcome email for folks that had pre-K through K. And I would have been like, wow, good job. Good me. And I would have great, you copied the mailing. Fantastic. But now I know that I can send it to one group and I can use existence filters to say, show this or not show this. So inside of here, I'm saying for this section here, it's only specific to pre-K and K. So you use some liquid logic to say, if pre-K, K, if whatever your export is equals Y. Some folks use 1s and 0s. Some people you could say yes or C, whatever you want to, you could have it on there. But basically you're saying, okay, inside the query, if this existence filter says yes or no, then show something. And so I'm going to go over here and look at the recipients list, and I'm going to kind of describe, again, test records here.
Thank you.
So, I mean, sometimes I mess up, but so for this kind of grouping, and it could just be for the students too. It doesn't have to be, through a relationship. But you could say, okay, is this student a junior or a senior? Is this student in the New York area? It could be it could be whatever you want to for the existence export. But in this one, I'm saying they have a child in pre-K or K in the term that we were looking at, which is fall 25. So I'm saying yes. So families that had a pre-K or K applicant would need to see this. I think existence filters are one of the easiest and most accessible ways to start with liquid markup, because it's just a yes or a no. And it's just, I'm showing something or not showing something. So it's an easy way to kind of dip your feet in. You can also just do like an export too of, say it's, if you want to know if they're a business or not, you could just have an export of what their major is and say, if major equals this. You can also use a concept block for that. Kind of depends on what you're doing. But I like the existence filters because then you can filter on kind of a couple of different things together to be able to decide if this information is relevant for this person or family or not. And then we close that end if here. And then another call to action that we wanted to have was we wanted to invite the family to come to programming. We wanted to invite them to an event. But I don't want to have to stop this mailing when our events are over. I just want it to keep going. So the liquid markup that I have here is I'm saying if events available equals Y. This is where some people, myself included, would just really freak out about an independent subquery, because I thought when people talked about independent subqueries, I didn't understand what they were talking about. I thought it was dumb. I didn't understand how anyone would ever use, what's the use for that? And now I use it all the time. But basically, an independent subquery means that you are now exporting or filtering on something that has nothing to do with the base that you're on. So you're moving off of the base that you're on. So for right here, I'm on the configurable joins person based, but I want to capture events. And that is, you can't really get there from the person based, because I just want events. I don't want this person's events. I just want events in general. So instead, we have an independent subquery. So with an independent subquery, you can choose whatever you want to your heart's content. You can do systems. You can do, whatever you want to. So in this case, I'm saying I want to look at the base of form, and I want to say a couple different criteria for me. I want it to be in the template that I'm looking for. I want it to be today or tomorrow, I guess. I want it to be starting, tomorrow on, because I don't want to send something to somebody that's going to happen today. They can't register for it. And I want it to be confirmed or active. Don't make that mistake that I've made before. You can also do, yeah, we've all been like, oh shoot, there's a bunch of tentative ones that we did. You might also want to put space available, to make sure there's space available, because if there's a full event, you don't want to have to go back. Or you don't have to tell folks like, oh, sorry, you can't, I asked you to, but you can't register. So that I'm just saying, if those criteria exist, then say yes, or Y. And if there's no things that exist, then say N. When I set this up in my test environment, there were none because they're all from before. So I just quickly, added one for the future, and then I was able to see it. So I'm saying if events available, then I want to show this block of text, just kind of like what we did before. This is where the dictionary export comes in though. So I have 4 kids and I want each one of them to show, I want to be able to click on and register each one of my students. And we do the events student centric. So if you have to sign each child up, because, you could be coming and only 2 of the children might be coming. And a lot of the times we'll have a split where families have a student in the lower division and the middle division and the upper division, or a combination of those. So, and we want it to be student centric. So with here, I'm going to go in the source data to look at this because it kind of disappears a little bit. I need to find it. So we were, in that kind of section, we were talking about, okay, if events available are yes, then show this. And this is another one of those liquid looping. And this one is using that dictionary output there that we, I'll go back and show that, but basically saying, and I used for result here. I don't know, I could have used for item, but I used for result. So it was probably something that was already set up. But for result in the student details, I want to have the link be going to our portal, and I want the person ID to be that student's result GUID. So when you click on the link, I want it to go to our website and already pre-fill for you. And if you're not using the pre-filled filter or the pre-populated form links, they make such a big difference. They make it easier for families and students and easier for us on the back end for lots of duplicates. And then I want the text to say admission events and then for that student's name. So we'll go back here and kind of look at this for a second. So the student details is a dictionary export, which again was super scary to me. Like, it was so confusing. But I'm doing the same kind of things. I'm like joining to relation and joining to the linked record person. And I'm basically saying for that person that is related to this parent, or it could be many different other things. You could be doing it, if you're doing it for donors, you could be saying that I want 4 events that are, in a certain range from where the person lives or something like that. Or different, if that person is a donor and they like a certain department or something, then you could be using that for that too. But I'm basically saying, because I'm looking for student information, I'm saying, okay, I'm linking it to the linked record person. And then I'm giving that preferred name and that GUID, all computer friendly. So now when I go back here, we're going to look at an example here, and then you have to close it with an end if. So here I have Ben Wyatt's family, and Ben Wyatt they only have 1 kid in the family. So he is not a pre-K or K. So now we can see that we don't get that pre-K or K section. And then we are going to loop through. We have events available for Ben to come to. And then when you hover over here, the link is going to send it, and the GUID is going to open, and it's going to take it straight to that registration on that page for Ben, and it's going to have his GUID in there. If you have more than 1 child, you are going to see it loops through both children. So this is 2 kids, and it's looping through both of those. So I don't have to do separate emails. I don't have to get 4 emails for me as a person. I don't have to get 4 emails for my kids. I get 1 email with all the information. And then each of these is a specific link to the child. So using liquid markup, I feel like this is a lot of words for me to say, but if you can take things away from it, as far as you can be really specific to people's interests and relationships and majors and grade levels, all the sorts of things that folks want to know. And want you to know about them and have, customized is really great. I really love the idea of, cutting down, if you want to send an email to folks, to alumni in a certain area or to students in a certain area. And then if we're having a conversation and you say, oh, I live in Phoenix. I'm like, oh, great. We're going to be in Phoenix next week. That's great. If you say, oh, I live in Phoenix. And I'm like, great. We're going to have events in Kansas City next week. You're like, what? Like, were you not listening? Were you not paying attention? And that's the kind of conversational kind of thing that I think Slate is best at, is helping you to make it conversational so people feel like they actually know who you are when you're emailing them. So those are some of the tips that I have for Deliver. I think that was, and then I have different groupings. Like if you're a reapplicant, I want you to know that I'm giving you a fee waiver code. If anyone's applying to Stevenson, I'm going to change the fee waiver code this year, okay? If you've logged in, I want you to get your, if you've logged in, I'm not really giving you your email address and your PIN because you don't need to know that. You already have logged in. I just have the application portal here. We just have that button. And that's really helpful too. So I have, again, at the bottom, I have, if you're pre-K and K, because it's a little bit different, right? So, and then I'm using some else statements here. So if you're a reapplicant, say yes, or reapplicant, then put this information there. And then there's this else if. So else, otherwise, if you're a current Stevenson family, then do something different. And then if, otherwise else. So using else statements is really helpful too. And thinking about things really logically and being like, oh, what should each person get is really great. And then last thing is that previewing the message is always super helpful. That's what I just did when I was checking out the difference between Wyatt, the Saperstein family, and the Wyatt family. Go into your query, run your query, have your exports in there of what you are like changing and customizing. And then go in and test. What is it going to look like? Because a lot of times I'll go in after I've done liquid looping or liquid markup or anything, and I'll say, oh, that spacing is odd. And then so I'll have to like put a space behind something or in front of something because, if you're not showing a whole section, maybe you need to put a space or an enter, what I'm saying, right afterwards. So that like gives it, so it gives it that nice look, and previewing is one of the best ways to do that. And then also sending yourself like an ad hoc email is really helpful to send yourself a test email too.
No, this is all amazing. And thank you so much for taking the time to create the test records and the events and stuff like that to show us it in action,
Yeah.
being dynamic and different. That's so helpful for the audience and myself watching along with you. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that as well.
Yeah.
These were all so amazing and super, super wonderful use cases. And I loved the other things that we're starting to get into, like the liquid looping and the dictionary exports, because those things that are definitely can be intimidating until you start actually doing them. And it's just like, oh, okay, this is literally like anything else in Slate. Once you start doing it, it just is something that you do then.
Yeah.
And what are some maybe common mistakes or missed opportunities that you see folks who are new to liquid in Slate?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I kind of thought about was being afraid of the more complicated things, like being afraid of dictionary outputs, being afraid of independent subqueries, and so not trying them. I think I have a user group that it's just one person now, just me and one other person, but we got together at the beginning of our implementation and we'd go back and forth about stuff together and we'd meet weekly and try to help each other. And I remember lots of times, and we still do it, where it's like, oh, I saw this cool thing. Like, I don't have time to do it now. It's intimidating. And then one of us would finally do the thing. And we were like, oh, that's actually not that bad. And then we would show the other person. They were like, oh, wow, that could make my life so much easier. So I think not attempting to do those two specific things, independent queries, and I can't remember what the other one was I said. Those are some really big ones that if you could just dictionary output and independent subqueries, just like start doing them. And that's, I think the biggest mistake is missing out on those.
Yeah, because it really opens up so much data, whether you're doing the independent subqueries or you're just being able to display several rows of data in a nicely dynamic, tailored, tabled way. Whether that's events, checklists, whatever, it could a million different things. Like it really allows you to create a custom user experience, whether it's in Deliver or Portal, with what looks on the surface scary, but is not as bad as like you said. Once you get into it and you're like, oh, okay, this 30-second primer someone told me is super helpful, and just diving in.
Yeah.
And if someone wanted to watch this and maybe tomorrow, like I want to start my liquid journey, what's some small change that they could do that could have a really big impact?
When talking about the admit letters made me think of things that you have multiple of that, it just can make a huge drip campaigns. If you're doing drip campaigns and you have, one drip campaign for juniors and one drip campaign for seniors, or one drip campaign for Libunts and one for Sybunts. And if you could just do your liquid marking on just find one super annoying mailing that you never like updating and you're like, oh, this is so annoying. And then just putting your liquid markup in there. And then that probably will get you going, probably get you started of doing more things.
Yeah, I love it. And what's one liquid trick that you still feel proud of every time you use it?
That dictionary export or the dictionary output. I'm like, man, that is so cool. Like, oh, I could show all the kids. I could show all the events. I could show all the, we do have a couple things that are really kind of more complicated that I have to look at every single time I do them. We're looking at like a translation code equaling something else. And I always, I go back to my documentation. I'm like, I just don't remember how to do these, but dictionary, I could do that in a second. And I'm like, it's so great.
And I would also echo that you mentioned like whether it's item or result in liquid looping setup, and then for each individual item. I think one of the common mistakes I'll do is I'll just copy that from something else, and then I'll rename that first piece on one of the areas, but not the other areas. And I'm like, why is this not working? And it's something, again, it's something so simple, so silly to do. So if you can standardize those pieces of whatever, because it doesn't really mean much other than just a declarative that helps the liquid loop and maybe is informative for you building it.
Yeah.
But if you're able to standardize stuff like that, or whether you're using Y versus one versus yes, having it standardized across the system. So whether someone is maybe copying what you're doing and merging with what they're doing, having that policy in place of we always use Y or we always use item for those liquid loops really can decrease those possible errors when you are doing something a little bit more complicated like this. Definitely always a fan of standardization while inspiring creativity.
And I did not think about that until you said that. And yeah, two of us use the Y and the N, and one of us uses the zero and the one, and then we just kind of do whatever we want to for item or result or student or event or whatever. And that is a really great point. Especially we have a team of four, and especially in that we do copy and borrow from each other a lot. And having everybody have that understanding would be really helpful. So I'll bring that up to my team.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for all of the insights that you were able to bring with liquid markup, the independent subqueries, the dictionary exports, liquid, like all that, all fantastic. Really looking forward to that going out to the audience, being able to be a really great source of truth, whether you're doing any of those things. I think will be a great resource. So I'm so glad that we were able to share that with the community. While you're here, though, I'd like to get your thoughts on another question for our segment, the branding bench. How are you approaching emails, calls, texts, and events to more strategically improve your funnel?
We engaged with a marketing company, I think it was last year, and they had us do an email audit. And through that email audit, they really came up with some thoughts for us. And I had never really considered the way our communication, the buckets that our communication falls in. They called them transactional and I think nurture and yield. And I thought that was not something that I had really considered before. And so now I am really kind of thinking about how transactional needs to have a call to action and nurture needs to have images and inside the content it needs to evoke some sort of emotion, and then the yield needs to be moving folks on kind of a combination of both. It needs to be transactional, like we want to move you on, but we want you to feel something to move you on. And so I guess that's a new way that I'm thinking about it, buckets, and the kind of intention and emotion behind that, whether it's a call or a text. And obviously events and things are going to be transactional, but having that kind of idea behind all that communication is really helpful, I think, for this cycle.
Yeah, and understanding where the student is in their journey and what they actually need from you as an institution is so important in crafting, whether it's communications or student experiences. So I love that. That is, I think, another great takeaway that probably 9 out of 10 people who are going to listen to this would be like, that would be a game changer for our institution.
We'll see how it goes. I'll give you an update. I haven't been around any better.
But yeah, again, another great takeaway. And thank you for sharing that with us. Before we wrap up, every artisan leaves their mark in the Smith signature. I'll ask a few questions so you can just stamp your personal hallmark on today's conversation. Sure. And what's one tool, digital or otherwise, that you rely on daily to keep your work running smoothly?
100% Deliver. We have these alerts, and the alerts email's not supposed to be a project management system. We know that, but we have alerts of things that we need to do daily. And there's a lot of like little weird, strange things that happen that we want to be alerted about and then jump on immediately. And I just messaged my team this morning because I got an alert for something that there a lot of pieces have to happen after that, somebody had declined us and then decided to come back, and you have to turn on a bunch of different things. And I was like, oh, thank you. I didn't have to look in anything. I just had this alert that told me that I had a bunch of stuff to do. So it was really great.
Fully 100% behind that. It's the way you're able to empower your staff through Deliver, whether it's those alerts, like here's the 3 things you need to do real quick. You don't have to link to a document. Here's the links in Slate to these 3 different spots you have to do, or notifying like, hey, you have an event that is coinciding with another event, and that's not going to work very well for you on the road. So there's so many great use cases of being able to use the tools in Slate to empower your staff that I think are not talked about enough, and again, could elevate a lot of institutional just back-end operations. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And what's caught your attention and sparked creativity or innovation for you lately?
I love those Get Inspired posts. Everything on the community forums and the Get Inspired. There's a lot of stuff that I never would have thought about or had the talent to do, or just just having a suitcase there where I can, take something that someone has spent a lot of time on and I can adjust it to my needs and use it really quickly for like a high impact. And a lot of times it's not anything that's going to like, increase yield maybe. But like right now, the thing I love is my staff. We have students all over the country that are applying to us, and the approximate time for that person record on their dashboard is really helpful to be like, should I call them or should I, instead of having to be like, oh, where is Georgia in this time zone or this time zone? And so that's one of the things that's been really helpful is all those Get Inspired posts have been awesome.
Yeah, there's so many reasons to love this Slate community, but being able to come together as a group and share ideas is definitely hands down one of my favorite parts. So yeah, if you're not checking out the Get Inspired section of the new-ish Slate community forum, please definitely go do that. And if you were starting your career today, what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
To really, we talk a lot. I coach volleyball too, and we talk about trying hard things. And I am challenging my fifth graders who are 10 years old to really try hard things, because if you try hard things early in your career, in your sports, in your life, then they get easier. Kind of like we've been talking about this whole time. You try dictionary output and independent subqueries earlier. If I had known those 5 years ago or tried the hard thing 5 years ago, my life would be so much easier now. So I think I would tell myself back then to take the time, try hard things, and connect with people who are also doing really great things so that you can learn from them, because that's a big way through the Get Inspired posts or through, community engagement in the forums to be like, wow, this is really neat. I can do this too. I'm just as smart as these other people and I can figure it out. So try hard things.
Yeah, and sometimes you find out it's not that hard, but even if it is hard, if you do it tomorrow versus 2 years from now, that's another 2 years of you using that really great functional tool that you wouldn't have had if you don't do it tomorrow. So, or today. Do it today.
Yeah, sure. Do it today. Yeah. Don't wait till Monday. Don't wait till Monday, David.
Yeah, so thank you for getting me back on track. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what's one project, goal, or maybe an aspiration that you have on the block to work on?
Yeah, from Slate Summit, there were a lot of things that I really liked. But an inventory system I saw from Eric Hoffpower, and also from, I can't remember his name, but he was from West Point. And I can't remember where his partner was from, but some inventory management systems were really something that I would like to get going, but I have to get some buy-in from campus too, and then I have to find the time to do that. So.
Just magically find time to build a completely, basically replicate an entire software system inside of Slate.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it'd be fine. It'd be fine.
No, of course. Thank you. Those are, I think, really great things. Again, that great to hear and great to work on for everybody and listening. And if listeners did want to connect with you about what you talked about today, or just pick your brain about all the amazing things that you didn't talk about today, where is the best place to message you? I'll be sure to add it to the notes.
Yeah, I'm on the community forums and then also on LinkedIn. Fantastic. And I'm happy to, if someone reaches out individually and through one of those ways, I'm happy to share my my Stevenson email, but I don't really want to share it in general. I don't need any more spam emails from technology or from technology companies. Are you ready to talk about? No, I don't need your system.
I feel like, I think I was getting a little too loose on my LinkedIn accepts, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I've opened a door, and it's just
floodgates. Yep.
Again, wonderful people to know.
I know, right?
This was such a wonderful conversation today, and thank you also for doing the Quick Strike interview. Anybody who hasn't listened to that, definitely go back, and I think you had some great points about using AI and just asking those questions and learning, being open to learn and not feeling shame about not knowing every single possible thing that there is to know in the universe. So that was also so great. And thank you for taking the time to share your experiences and your insights with us. I definitely appreciate your journey and your expertise. I know everyone else will as well. It's given us a lot to think about it. And thanks again for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great.
In this segment, we dig into the how behind Annie's most impactful work. And it's all about approaching complexity with clarity. Here's what stood out. Start with the system, not just the screen. Annie doesn't just jump straight into visuals. She maps the logic first, whether it's a dynamic decision letter or a complex portal. She starts by understanding how the pieces talk to each other. Liquid Markup is her secret weapon. Instead of hard-coding variations, she uses Slate's markup language to make communications respond to data. That means every email, letter, or portal can actually flex based on real user inputs, without manual work. Design with the engineer in mind. One of Annie's core philosophies, your future self and your engineering team should be able to understand and scale what you build. That means naming logic cleanly, avoiding overcomplication, and building for reuse. Iteration isn't optional, it's the method. Annie shares how she doesn't always get it right on the first try, and that's the point. The key is testing, collaborating, and refining the solution as the team learns more. Sometimes the elegant thing is just doing the hard logic and not overcomplicating it. This is systems design as storytelling, and Annie's blueprints are as intentional as they are inventive. For those watching the video, or willing just to see our next mascot, I need a name for our segment, The Consultant Cadre. Send me an email at theinnovationforgepodcast@gmail.com, or find me on the socials like LinkedIn and Instagram to comment your suggestion. As always, I'll send the ebook of The Innovation Forge to all winning name submitters. If you enjoyed today's episode, please grow the guild by rating and reviewing the Innovation Forge podcast, or sharing it with a colleague who needs to hear about these creative crossovers in education. The best review or comment every month will get an ebook of my book, of course. Particularly great ones will also be featured on future episodes. Thank you so much for joining me in the workshop today. Remember to strike true, and let's forge something extraordinary together.
Years at Rockhurst taught her how to fight. From admissions to advancement, she worked day and night. Now at Stevenson School, she's steering the show. With liquid in her toolkit, she's making it flow. Liquid runs through it, clean as a stream, turning messy old queries into one simple dream. From today to tomorrow, she can sort it with grace. Liquid runs through it, tidying the place.
She built a campus portal with a hamburger view, tours, interviews, shadows and parents too. One query at the center, no more tangled mess, case statements and filters, doing all the rest. Liquid runs through it, clean as a stream, turning messy old queries into one simple dream. Emails feel human, every family feels known. Liquid runs through it like seeds being sown. She says, don't fear case statements, don't fear the loop. Once you learn the syntax, you're in the groove. From parents to children, from Phoenix to home, Liquid makes each message feel less alone. She conquers her high dives, faces each fear. Even on the summit stage, her message is clear. It's not just the data, it's the people you reach. With a Liquid as your helper, that's the lesson she'll teach. Liquid runs through it, clean as a stream, From the inbox to portals, it carries the dream. Annie shows the captains how to keep it all tight. Liquid runs through it, making Slate shine bright. So here's to the captain with courage and spark, building smarter systems, leaving her mark. Liquid runs through it, steady and true, and it just might run smoother